Here in England, football clubs remain largely apolitical. A majority of match-attending Liverpool fans may lean slightly to the left, and Dulwich Hamlet in the National League South certainly have strong community ties and subsequent political involvement, but by and large, there is very little radical political leanings at English clubs. This is not the case in much of the world, where many of the most fiercely contested rivalries are either built upon or have elements of fervently held opposing political viewpoints involved in them. Subscribers to this channel may recall that in October 2019, I made a video looking at 7 of the most political football clubs on earth. Much to my surprise, that video wasn't demonetised and had quite a lot of views, so naturally, today's video will probably be demonetised and watched by about 13 people. Naturally, I won't be including any of the clubs who featured in part 1 of this video, and though I doubt it, I could easily make a part 3 if the demand for one existed. Political football clubs tend to fall into one of 3 categories: right wing, left wing, and separatist. You don't tend to get many radical centrist football clubs with Che Guevara style posters of Nick Clegg plastered to the stands and supporters belting out chants about pragmatism and compromise, which is a shame because that would be brilliant. Last time out, I tried to remain an apolitical commentator on most assuredly non-apolitical football clubs, although I was still called a communist by one person in the comments because I said Nazi salutes and monkey chants were a teeny bit racist. I will try to remain just as impartial on this occasion, and hopefully between us we can keep the comments reasonably civil and not let it descend into a complete cesspit of hate. Here are the 7 most political football clubs in world football, part 2. AEK Athens. In part 1, we took a look at the political landscape of Cypriot football. I won't say which clubs for the sake of those of you who haven't seen that video and still plan to do so, and today we turn our attention to Greece. Historically, Greek football hasn't tended to be as politically charged as Cypriot football, but there has been a rise in prominence of certain politically fueled ultras and hooligans in recent years due to the rise of the far-right and neo-Nazi Golden Dawn Party. A lot of Greek football clubs have far-right and far-left fan clubs and ultra groups, and AEK Athens falls into that bracket. So there is lots of nuance when it comes to the political allegiances of Greek football clubs. However, there are still some lazy generalisations one can make. AEK Athens were founded in 1924 by refugees fleeing the Greco-Turkish War. The K in AEK literally means Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, and as refugees, AEK have naturally long held anti-fascist and anti-racist inclinations. Much of AEK's fanbase still reside in left-leaning working-class neighbourhoods, making AEK one of Greece's most politically active clubs. In 2013, AEK midfielder Georgios Katidis controversially celebrated a goal with a Nazi or Roman salute. Katidis went for what is now known as the Hennessy defence, claiming that he knew nothing of the implications of the gesture, but it didn't wash. Following fan pressure, he never played for the club again, and he also received a lifetime ban from representing the Greek national team. Hansa Rostock. Anyone who watched my video about 7 unusual football rivalries will know a little bit about Hansa Rostock, who don't receive an enormous amount of international attention these days. One of the most successful clubs in East Germany whilst Germany was divided, Hansa were relegated from the Bundesliga in 2005 and they dropped into the 3rd Liga in 2012. There are some similarities between Hansa Rostock and the city of Rostock in the sense that both were quite important and successful in East Germany, but have had their struggles since the fall of the Berlin Wall. Rostock was the scene of the xenophobic 1992 Rostock-Lichtenhagen riots, in which a mob of 2,000 to 3,000 people shouted racist chants and attacked migrants and refugees as the police watched on passively as many locals applauded. It was the worst attack on migrants in post-war German history, and it came as a concern to many in a nation with a rather dark past when it comes to the rise of the far right. There haven't been any repeats of the 1992 Rostock riots since, but the city does retain a far-right fringe, some of whom are closely associated with the football club. This has led to a rather fierce rivalry between Hansa and Germany's most left-wing club St. Pauli, and it also leads to them featuring in 6th place in this 7. Athletic Club. I wanted to include a separatist club in this 7, and it was a toss-up between Athletic Club and Bastia. In the end, I went with Athletic Club, whose political stance extends beyond their supporters and into their dressing room. The club from Bilbao, often referred to as Athletic Bilbao here in the UK, have a well-known Cantera policy, which means they only sign players with some link to the Basque country. The policy has been both lauded and criticised in separate quarters, with some complimenting the support and development of homegrown players, whilst others have raised red flags as to whether the policy could be considered racist. Of course, Athletic Club do not discriminate on issues of ethnicity or religious beliefs, just links to the local region, which at times can be rather tenuous in truth. The Bilbao club's Cantera policy has close ties to the idea of Basque nationalism and even Basque separatism. Whilst the Basque nationalist movement has rather taken second stage to the more prevalent desire for separatism among many in Catalonia in recent times, it is still a sizable movement. Basque nationalists seek a political unity of the Basque people scattered in Spain and France, and Athletic Club has inevitably become somewhat intertwined with the political movement. Hapoel Tel Aviv. A quick look at the Hapoel Tel Aviv badge featuring a hammer and sickle should give you a decent idea of the club's political inclinations. In fact, you don't even need to see the club's badge, since the word Hapoel means the worker. Israel has plenty of political clubs, including possibly the most right-wing club on earth who featured in part 1 of this series, but Hapoel's political persuasions very evidently lie on the opposite end of the spectrum. Our perception of Israel maybe is a very nationalistic and right-wing nation, but naturally, there is a plurality of political opinions in every country, even in the ones where dissenting views are quashed or even criminalised. Hapoel long predate Israel's Declaration of Independence, founded in 1923, and for 7 decades, the team was owned by the Histadrut, which is Israel's national trade union centre. Trade unions tend to be rather left-wing, as I'm sure you all know, and the Histadrut is no exception. Images of Karl Marx and Che Guevara can often be found at the Bloomfield Stadium in Tel Aviv, along with the slogan reading, "Workers of the World Unite." Hapoel's fan groups range from the centre-left supporters of Israel's Labour Party to Marxists and Leninists who favour the nation's more fringe parties like the Israeli Communist Party, also known as Maki. Celtic. When I tell you that Hapoel Tel Aviv have a long-standing friendship with Celtic, you can probably guess where Celtic sits on the political spectrum. There was more outrage about Celtic's omission than that of any other team in my Part 1 back in October, and I partly left Celtic out because of the religious importance as well as political importance to fans. Partly because I had 7 equally political or even more political clubs, and partly because anything involving Celtic and Rangers on this platform tends to turn a little sour in the comments. Nonetheless, today I am making amends, and hopefully you will all prove me wrong with that last suspicion. Incredibly, Celtic are believed to have around 10 million followers worldwide, which is around twice the entire population of Scotland. Much of Celtic's support comes from football fans in Ireland and from the wider Irish diaspora across the globe. Celtic were founded many moons ago by Irish Catholics with the purpose of acting as a charity to help impoverished children in Glasgow. The Old Firm derby between Celtic and Rangers is one that's still coloured by religious, political and sectarian debates, and Irish flags and IRA-related chants are not uncommon at Celtic Park. The Green Brigade ultra group adds to Celtic's political reputation, considered to be radically anti-fascist and anti-racist. The Green Brigade have protested Celtic wearing the poppy around Remembrance Day due to its controversy in Ireland, as well as making displays of their solidarity with the people of Palestine by displaying Palestinian flags. As a result, Celtic supporters groups have close ties to a number of left-wing clubs from across the globe. Chemnitzer FC. The least well-known team in this 7, particularly among younger viewers, Chemnitzer FC have never competed in the Bundesliga. Located in the city of Chemnitz, Saxony, Chemnitzer FC have a curious political past. From 1953 to 1990, during the years of German division, the East Germans renamed the city of Chemnitz Karl-Marx-Stadt, initially doing so in 1953 to mark 70 years since Marx's death, and the football club followed suit with a renaming of their own. It was a new name for a new city in many respects, since the city centre had been completely destroyed during the Second World War. Karl-Marx-Stadt became a model socialist town, but there remained lingering discontent. Ironically, the former socialist model town is now home to one of Germany's largest far-right movements, and the football club, once named FC Karl-Marx-Stadt, is now strongly associated with Germany's few remaining Nazis or neo-Nazis. Last season, Chemnitzer sought to distance themselves from the extreme sections of their support by sacking their captain and star centre-forward Daniel Thrane after he expressed sympathy for the neo-Nazi groups. However, just months earlier, the club allowed a pre-match tribute to deceased neo-Nazi Tommy Haller, who founded the Hu Na Ra supporters group, with the Hu Na Ra standing for hooligans, Nazis, racists. This drew controversy in Germany, and Chemnitzer has been the scene of Germany's largest far-right rallies and anti-immigrant rhetoric in recent times. Rayo Vallecano. This 7 isn't in order of most political, most Marxist, or anything like that, but I did immediately pencil in Rayo Vallecano for top spot since they are the team who I felt most aggrieved about leaving out of part 1 of this video. There is perhaps no club in Spanish football with a greater community spirit than Rayo Vallecano, located in the Villacas neighbourhood of Madrid. Madrid is a football-mad city, but in the shadow of the giants of Real and Atletico, there is Rayo. However, whatever Rayo lack in success compared to their near neighbours, they more than make up for in passion. The Villaca district of Madrid, both now and historically, is renowned for its radical left-wing thoughts and fierce opposition to fascism and racism. This is an ethos the local football club firmly embraces, and particularly the club's ultras, known as the Bucaneros. Rayo, and the Bucaneros in particular, are renowned for their community engagement and charity work. It is said that a player signing for Rayo signs a social contract as much as a sporting one, and must know what it means to represent the club. In 2017, when Rayo signed striker Roman Zazulya, the club was met with fierce opposition due to Zazulya's reported sympathy and support for far-right causes in Ukraine. The opposition was so fierce that Zazulya never played for Rayo, and when he faced Rayo as an Albacete player, the game was abandoned by the referee due to the level of vitriol aimed in his direction. Rayo are undoubtedly one of the most politically charged football clubs on earth. So that's it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. Check out part 1 if you haven't already seen it. Let us know your views in the comments. Give us a like if you enjoyed the video. And as always, make sure that you are subscribed to HITC Sevens.